Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, I'm here, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Lots to get to. First things first, when I heard today that we dropped a 21,600-pound GPS-guided bomb on ISIS in Afghanistan, it was like Christmas, Hanukkah. It was exciting. 7:32 p.m. local time, U.S. forces in Afghanistan conducted a strike on ISIS-K tunnel complex in Achin district, Afghanistan, as part of ongoing efforts to defeat ISIS-K in Afghanistan in 2017. U.S. Central Command said in a statement, referring to the Islamic State branch in Afghanistan and Pakistan, ISIS Khorasan. Makes you wonder why Obama didn't do this. The bomb, the Massive Ordnance Air Blast, whose acronym inspired the name Mother of All Bombs, is the largest non-nuclear bomb in America's arsenal. We targeted a system of tunnels and caves that ISIS fighters used to move around freely, making it easier for them to target U.S. military advisors and Afghan forces in the area, the White House press secretary Sean Spicer said. The U.S. takes the fight against ISIS very seriously, and in order to defeat the group, we must deny them operational space, which we did. The main attribute of the mother of all bombs is that it causes overpressure. Dr. Adam Lothar, the director of the U.S. Air Force's School of Deterrence, told Business Insider that overpressure caused when the bomb detonates at a low altitude over its target is designed to crush underground tunnels and bunkers like the ones often used by ISIS. It is a very narrow target set. Basically, the official said targets in an environment like caves or canyons or clearing minefields are ideal for the mother of all bombs. It was the right munition for what we were engaged in, the official said. I'm liking it. I hope we have a lot more. The President of the United States said today, cut to go.
Really another successful job. We're very, very proud of our military. Thank you. Just like we're proud of the folks in this room, we are so proud of our military, and it was another successful event.
Did you authorize it, sir?
Everybody knows exactly what happened, and what I do is I authorize my military. We have the greatest military in the world, and they've done a job as usual. So we have given them total authorization, and that's what they're doing. And frankly, that's why they've been so successful lately. If you look at what's happened over the last 8 weeks and compare that really to what's happened over the last 8 years, you'll see there's a tremendous difference. So we have incredible leaders in the military, and we have incredible military, and we are very proud of them. And this was another very, very successful mission.
Now, this is a very interesting statement. It sounds to me he didn't give the direct order. He's just told them, go out there and wipe out ISIS, wherever they are. And they probably alerted him to what they were going to do, and he said, good. And they did it. Quite different from the Obama administration sitting in the White House deciding what would and would not be targeted, which is nuts. But this is something in one area that is consistent with what Trump said during the campaign. Here's Trump in Iowa, November 12, 2015. Cut one, go.
People are thinking like I don't have a plan. I hate doing it. So I'm on one of the shows, and I said, look, ISIS is making a tremendous amount of money because they have certain oil camps, right? They have certain areas of oil that they took away. They have some in Syria, some in Iraq. I would bomb the shit out of them. I would just bomb those suckers. And that's right. I'd blow up the pipes. I'd blow up the I'd blow up every single inch. There would be nothing left. And you know what? You'll get Exxon to come in there in 2 months. You ever see these guys, how good they are, the great oil companies? They'll rebuild that sucker brand new. It'll be beautiful. And I'd ring it, and I'd take the oil.
But the point is, though, he said he was going to take them out, and that's clearly what he intends to do. But let me say this. I remember when we first launched our attacks in Afghanistan with the Daisy Busters and so forth. And so we're going to dust off an oldie but a goodie, my version of Kumbaya. Mr. All right, an oldie but a goodie. On top of that, this from the Washington Examiner and Fox News. A Japan-based combat-ready Air Force wing showed off its aircraft Wednesday in a clear warning to North Korea. Fox News has learned that, as reported, the 18th Wing conducted a surprise military exercise at Kadena Air Base in Japan as North Korea is rumored to be nearing its 6th nuclear weapons test. A group of H-860 Pavehawks, F-15 Eagles, E-3 Sentries, and KC-135 Stratotankers all took part in the exercise, the report said. Such exercises are known as an elephant walk, featuring planes taxiing in tight formation. Let's see here. Before takeoff, China has warned North Korea's adversaries not to make any rash actions because military force cannot resolve the issue, according to the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. North Korea has conducted 2 nuclear tests and about 24 missile tests in the last year. Now, the show of force is in addition to the recent deployment of the USS Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group to the region. The group of ships, comprising an aircraft carrier, 2 destroyers, and a cruiser, had been scheduled to visit Australia before it was rerouted this weekend. President Trump this week urged Chinese President Xi Jinping to solve the problem of an aggressive North Korea, or else, he said, quote, we will solve the problem without them. Wow. Donald Trump is having to clean up a lot of Barack Obama's turds here, isn't he? Oh, yes, he is. And it needs to be done. But it does raise a question that I raised yesterday. I want to raise it more thoroughly with you today. It does raise a question, which I'll ask when we come back.
Mark Levin.
From a very, very disappointed Trump supporter. I'll give you the name after I read it. In the space of the last week, President Donald Trump has either altered or totally reversed his views on U.S. involvement in Syria, Russia's friendliness or lack thereof, China's currency manipulation, Federal Chair Janet Yellen, the Export-Import Bank, and NATO. It's enough to A, give you whiplash, and B, raise legitimate questions about what Trump actually believes, given that many of his current positions are directly at odds with those that he staked out during the campaign. Is this a new Trump? A more centrist, realistic one? And if so, what changed? The answer is that nothing has really changed. Think about what has always sat at the heart of how Donald Trump defines himself. Deal-making. He became a national figure following the success of his book, The Art of the Deal. The persona that made him a reality TV star was one of a tough bargaining deal maker. He ran for president on that same idea. I've done big deals all my life. None of these politicians know how to make the best deals, but I do. Everything in the world of Trump is a negotiation, up to and including facts. This quote from Art of the Deal is deeply revealing about the Trump philosophy. Quote, I never get too attached to one deal or one approach. For starters, I keep a lot of balls in the air because most deals fall out, no matter how promising they seem at first. The fact is that Trump was miscast and willfully played into the mischaracterization during the Republican primary fight as an ideologue. He was able to carve out a niche within the party by leading people to believe that his tough talk on things like immigration or China's currency policies were evidence of a deep-rooted conservatism and commitment to ideology that he would bring to the White House. Trump knew, for example, that conservatives thought that then-President Barack Obama kowtowed too often to NATO, so he took a hardline stance in declaring the organization obsolete. On Syria, Trump knew that there was real resistance from the public to anything resembling a foreign conflict with an uncertain time commitment and a muddy definition of winning. So he came out hard against U.S. involvement. The point is that Trump took these positions not because they were long and deeply held views, but because they made sense for him politically at the time. Conservatives wanted a brash, tough-talking outsider. That's what Trump gave them. He was able to do so because he had never run for office before, and so his positions on virtually every issue were unknown. Trump, unlike, say, Jeb Bush, who had a long record of views on virtually every subject, could tailor his issue positions to what the voters wanted. Once you understand that Trump views everything, up to and including where he stands on a given issue on any given day, as a sort of extended negotiation, it becomes far easier to understand how he could so quickly and totally reverse himself on major issues, like the U.S. relationship with China or whether the Export-Import Bank should exist. The positions he once took fit that moment. But now that he's president, and in the words of White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, circumstances change, Trump is entirely comfortable taking different views. What we see as flip-floppery and weakness, Trump sees as flexibility and uncertainty, which he thinks are two hallmarks of any strong deal-maker. Trump doesn't feel any allegiance to past positions or really past statements about issues. Those are the sorts of things that get in the way of making the best deals. And that's what Trump believes the public wants from him. Ideology or consistency be damned. So, what do you think of that, folks? Do you agree with that? Mr. Callscreen, I'm curious to know what the public thinks about this, what our audience thinks about this. The art of the deal, flexibility, no ideology. I got to be able to make the best deal I can. Is that what you thought you were getting? I'm talking specifically about the earliest Trump supporters who supported him throughout the primary process. Is this what you wanted? If he reverses position on trade with China, is that okay by you? If he decides he can't get the wall right away, maybe he can get it in 2 or 3 or 5 years, who knows? Is that okay by you? I'm quite curious about this. Now, those of us who supported Ted Cruz in the Republican primaries, we supported him because he was the toughest, we thought, conservative, who was the most principled of the bunch. And I feel that way. There were other great candidates. But truthfully, on a lot of these issues, a lot of this is traditional Republicanism, isn't it? Isn't it traditional Republicanism? Why is he supporting the Export-Import Bank other than because the Chamber of Commerce and a lot of these international corporations want it? He says he now realizes China doesn't have the leeway over North Korea that he thought. That, after one meeting with the president of China in Florida, you're able to reach that conclusion? In terms of currency manipulation, China is manipulating currency. Now, nobody may care about it, but China is manipulating currency. So why say China's not manipulating currency? Well, Mark, because he's trying to work a deal with China in order to get North Korea. Fine. But you don't have to say China's not manipulating currency when, in fact, China is manipulating its currency. Now, I happen to support what he did in Syria. I happen to support what he's doing with Russia, what he's doing with North Korea and so forth. But those of you who are Code Pink Republicans, aren't you very furious at this point, like Ann Coulter being a Code Pink Republican? Although she used to back Christie, and before that Romney, and before that McConnell, but things change. So, what do you think about all this? Do you agree with the person who wrote this piece, whose name I will reveal a little bit later? That the strength Trump has is Trump's consistent in his inconsistencies. That is, he wants to make deals. What he thinks are the best deals possible. Maybe he wants to make the best deal possible he feels for the country in this area or that area or another area. And so he's not bound by any particular principles, except wanting to do what's best, what he thinks is best. And do you have a problem with that? It also gives the most ardent Trump supporters a way out all the time, doesn't it? So no matter what position he abandons, it's okay because he's smarter than everybody else. He's got a plan. You see what I mean? We had a caller like that yesterday. My problem was I couldn't keep up. So what are you talking about? Oh, you don't understand. This guy's 3 steps ahead of us. Oh, okay. So, but the question is, are you comfortable with this? And what does it mean doing the best you can and cutting the best deals you can if they're not based on some foundational principles? What does that mean? And so I'm asking you, we're not going to do this all night, But I'm asking you what you think about what this gentleman wrote, whose name I will reveal in the next half hour. He's saying, hey, look, he got exactly what we knew he was before he even ran in the primaries. He's a deal maker. Anybody who watched The Apprentice knows exactly what he does. This should be no surprise to anyone. Is it a surprise to you? I'll be right back.
13811.
Now, I want to prove something to my fellow conservatives out there, so let's get started. Gail, Birmingham, Alabama, the great... What? That's not the station.
Hi, Mark.
How are you? Let's get the right station up there. Go right ahead, Gail. How are you?
Alabama. We've got Birmingham. We've got the land of Jeff Sessions.
Yeah. And
your question is a very provocative one because we live in a country that I think is made of some of the finest people in the world. And we're mostly pacifists. And I think we're mostly the kind of people that would...
What did you just say?
Well, we're people who do not want to fight. I mean, in the sense of we're not warlike. We're a country that want to take care of people. We're probably some of the nicest, most generous people.
We're not pacifists, though. We believe in peace, but we're not pacifists.
A lot of people that would rather like...
Are we all Quakers all of a sudden? I'm not aware of that.
I grew up in Pennsylvania.
You're not listening to a word I'm saying. I said we are not pacifists. We believe in peace.
I'm very much supportive of Trump. This is the first time I've seen a president act like a president. I watched every one of his...
Gail, are you there, by the way? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Did you hear my question to you?
Please repeat it, Mark.
We're not pacifists. We believe in peace. You know what a pacifist is?
Well, that's someone that won't fight at all.
Right. All right. Go right ahead about Trump. I'm sorry.
I retract the word. I think we're a country that has been generous and has gone to war to protect others for years. I think we're an incredible country. Now, as to Trump, I had very few choices as I watched the Republicans turn into some sort of party that I don't recognize. What
do they stand for, Gail? That's my question.
Well, the Republicans, no, they're bureaucrats.
Do they stand for anything?
No, they're living large. They stand for their own self-interest, and there may be such wonderful ones there, but in time it makes it difficult for the good ones.
So they really don't stand for major principles that you care about, correct?
I think they stand for taking the money out of my pocket and putting it into the pockets of others. I think
so they stand for big government.
Well, absolutely, and so does big government that are probably the largest employer in the United States.
All right, now go ahead with Donald Trump. I didn't mean to divert you.
I did read his book. I have watched him. I can't read his mind. It's just I must have confidence, and I must find a way to communicate to him. All of us should, as best we can, our hopes, our fears, and why we've put so much trust in him. And
why did you?
I did because I feel he is very bright. I really feel he loves our country. He loves to build. I believe that he wants to save this land because I believe he sees our country in a position that we may be, over time, doomed. I think he cares about...
Don't you think a lot of the Republican candidates felt that way? In other words, what principles did Trump espouse that attracted you?
His strength, the fact that...
No, what? Not character. What principles? Any principles at all?
Yeah, securing the borders, absolutely.
Yeah.
Getting our books in order to make sure our country is not so deeply in debt.
No. He's run on $1 trillion on infrastructure spending. That doesn't get our books in order.
I didn't read it that way. I read it that he's going to work with other industries and it's going to be a shared...
Well, I read it that way. $1 trillion is $1 trillion.
Well, and it could also mean that the $1 trillion means the infrastructure is worth $1 trillion, and he can run on that and cut deals.
So you don't care about the debt?
And I think he needs to do that.
So you don't care about the debt?
I think we can manage the debt by managing...
You just said something that doesn't work with something you said before.
Well, you know, Mark, I'm probably a very typical American...
Let's not talk in generality. I get this all the time. The point is you're not sure what principles, right?
He is not unaccustomed to the issue of... He's high finance. He's had certainly a fine education.
Okay. I asked you, it's not a trick. I'm asking you, what principles did he run on that you felt strongly about, or was it more you felt his character, his personality, the strength of his potential leadership?
Yeah, I thought his strength, and I thought he would pull our America together, and I thought he would deal with the bureaucracy in Washington, and I thought he really could fend off the poor-thinking Republicans and the poor-thinking Democrats. I have faith in that.
So why did he bring Reince Priebus in as chief of staff?
You know, it's just, I guess he cuts deals. He's a Republican, and he had to have some Republican support.
So you'll forgive him for that. You want him to fight the Republicans, but he brings in really the quintessential rhino, and that's okay.
You know, I'm not sure. I'm not going to agree there is not goodness in Reince Priebus. I'm not going to agree to that, and I'm
sure there's goodness in him. He's not the devil, but you're dancing all around here, and it's troubling me a little bit because I think Donald Trump could be Richard Nixon, and you wouldn't have a problem with it.
I have a president that I will support because we have a crisis in this country. And we must have people join.
Yes, we do have a lot of crises in this country. And the way you get out of these crises, in my view, is to embrace our founding principles. Not to embrace infrastructure, anyway, you gave me your answers, Gail, and I appreciate it. So she pretty much agrees with this article. That flexibility. And by the way, I'm not trashing Trump. I'm trying to figure out, for the most ardent Trump supporters, what will it take? Anything? Nothing? And by the way, I've heard it said, I think Victor Davis Hanson may have said it, some of these guys on Fox. You know, I could be wrong, but the 21 list of judges, they put that 21 list of judges to get conservatives. That's how that list came about. I'm not trying to relitigate or re-prosecute the Republican primaries in the least. I'm trying to understand. I just read this man's article, his column, I'll reveal him in a moment, who said, look, Trump's about cutting deals and cutting the best deals he can. If it means switching a position, he'll switch a position. And I'm curious to know if people are supportive of that. Jason, Denver, Colorado, KNUS, go.
Yes, I am. You know, in some places, I am supportive. In two cases, this switch on NATO, I think he understood that he had made positions or took their stake in a position that they needed to pay their fair share. They needed to invest in the military.
No, but he said NATO was obsolete.
I understand that. And they were in his mind because they didn't do the things that he said they needed to do, which was to pay their fair share, to pay 2% of their...
No, NATO doesn't exist... Hold on now. That's two different things. NATO doesn't exist to pay a fair share. It should pay its fair share. NATO is the North... It's the North Atlantic Treaty Alliance. That's what it is. We put it together after World War II, not only to protect Europe, but to protect us and defend off the Russians and any other forces that we had to deal with. So it's there for a strategic purpose. So saying it needs to pay its fair share, I certainly agree with that. But it's not obsolete, and the president just said it's not obsolete, having campaigned on the fact that it was obsolete.
So, Mark, my thought is that strategically it makes sense that because they were doing things that were not paying their fair share, they were not investing heavily in military and taking on ISIS and whatever, to his opinion. And so he rendered them obsolete by saying that makes them obsolete. When they came and started...
That's not what he said. That's not what he said. That's what you're saying in 2020 hindsight. Next issue.
But he said they're obsolete, and there were some reasons why they were obsolete. He said they were obsolete because they were not paying their fair share.
That's not what he said. He didn't say they're obsolete because they're not paying their fair share. One had nothing to do with the other. He said they need to pay their fair share, and they're obsolete. And that was part of his position with the Code Pink Republicans, that he felt we didn't need to get behind such international organizations so thoroughly, that we didn't need to be in the Middle East and so forth and so on. That's what he said.
But he said that they were obsolete, and that
next point.
My point behind that is that now strategically...
Next point.
That now strategically, if he has NATO and them now paying their fair share, them now investing heavily in the military, them now investing in...
They're not investing heavily in their military. They have to contribute 2% of their GDP.
to their military to build.
Some of them have invested 1.5%, some of them 1%, some 1.75%, and we've invested more than that.
Contributed $10 billion.
Thanks for your call. He's not going to stop. He's not going to stop. Okay. Let's continue. Let's see here. Bill, Kennewick, Washington, the great KFLD. Go.
Yeah, hi, Mark. Pleasure to talk to you.
Hello, Bill. Thank you.
Yeah, so I believe that a good negotiator can have principles in his heart that may not be reflected in some of the things he says, but the end game may still be what his principles are, such as we really don't want to mess with North Korea. We might have to negotiate with China temporarily.
Let's try a few of these things. Export-Import Bank. He opposed it. Now he supports it. Why did he do that?
Well, I think that might be something temporary. He's also telling China that it's in their best interest to take care of North Korea. We really don't.
Okay, the Export-Import Bank has nothing to do with China or North Korea. It subsidizes Boeing and other international companies to make investments overseas. So why would you support that?
It's over my head, Mark. But
that's okay with you, though. That's all right.
That.
Yeah.
But I just feel like he could have good principles in mind and negotiating at that level.
You think Jeb Bush had good principles in mind?
You make a good point there. He did, but he didn't necessarily take.
But you didn't trust Jeb Bush. You trust Trump, don't you?
Not 100%.
But I mean, you trust Trump more than you did Jeb Bush.
Not 100. No, I can't say that.
Okay. So why did you vote for Trump in the primary?
I believed in a lot of the things he said on immigration and and the wall and some of the policies.
And by the way, they're doing good things on immigration, aren't they? Jeff Sessions is doing excellent things. So, and the executive orders that these left-wing judges have outrageously turned on their heads. So that he deserves credit on. But what about some of these other things? What about his approach to foreign policy? It is quite different than what he campaigned on. Let's be clear. He was trashing Bush 41, trashing him. And he was trashing our interventionism. Now, he's not John McCain, who I think is out of his mind wanting to send troops everywhere, so that we can agree. And by the way, I support what he's doing in foreign policy. I want to make that utterly clear. But this really wasn't the position he took before, was it?
No, I hope that, his principles are what's best for America, and what he says day to day.
Well, Nancy Pelosi, as screwed up and goofballish as she is, she thinks her principles are best for America. Anybody can run around and say, I want to make America great again, I want to do what's best for America, and I'm a great negotiator. Don't you want to know a little bit more?
I do, Mark, and I would like to keep to the conservative structure. I just don't know if it's possible in today's world.
Yeah, they used to say that before Reagan. They really did. If it's not possible in today's world, it's never possible.
I hope it is.
All right, my friend. Appreciate your call. I'm not trying to be tough on people. I'm trying to get people to think. You know who wrote this piece that I read to you earlier? A guy by the name of Chris Cillizza, who is a leftist. He has worked for the Washington Post. He wrote it in the CNN. I believe he's going to Politico. So we're hearing callers that agree with this guy. We're hearing callers that agree with this guy that the key to Trump is he's a negotiator. And he never really had a philosophy. And you can hear pseudo-conservatives and conservatives praising this. That's what's great about him. What? He doesn't have a position that it's real. He can move. He's flexible. He can do this. He can do that. I just trust him, and he can do that. I'll tell you what. And then we're going to trash what? The Freedom Caucus? Those bastards. Those purist ideologues. What the hell's wrong with them? Tell you what, if we get a good Obamacare repeal bill, it's going to be thanks to those men and nobody else. Anyway, I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Another blockbuster story. We'll have to wait till the next hour. What if I told you that when you walk to your mailbox today, you'll find $1,500 you've been needing to finally buy the gun of your dreams? You could add the Kimber or a new hunting rifle to your collection. Or what about that custom 1911 you've been drooling over? Well, that dream will come true for 10 of you, thanks to my good friends over at the United States Concealed Carry Association, who provide education, training, self-defense insurance for responsible gun owners like you and me. If you've ever been forced to shoot, or even just draw your gun in self-defense, the USCCA will be your first call after 9/11 to help you navigate the murky waters of the legal system and keep you out of hot water. But remember, their giveaway won't last forever. And $1,500, that's a lot of money. You'll basically be able to pick any gun off the shelf. Don't miss this opportunity. Your entry to win is 100% free. Head over to defendthem.com right now to lock in your 10 chances to win the gun of your dreams. That's defendthem.com, and you can win a brand new gun. Defendthem.com. Andre, Clintondale, New York, on the Mark Levin app. Go.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not really comfortable with Trump changing his positions here. He ran on a platform of rigidity. He was going to run and not be deterred by the bureaucracy, by the international community, by the left wing. He was going to stand firm and true, just like what I believe our forefathers did in these positions. They ran true to what they stood for, and unfortunately, he just didn't. He seems to be changing, and maybe some things are good, but what I voted for was somebody that was going to stand firm and not take down.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you vote for him in the primary, too?
Yes, I did.
Mm-hmm. So you're concerned that he's changing his positions. You're not buying this. There's some great, deep strategy out there that he's changing his positions so he can go back to his positions.
No. The thing for me is that, you know, when I'm looking at somebody who says that I'm running on a platform that is outside of the norm, I'm not really playing the same games as these other politicians did. I'm coming from the outside. I don't like the establishment, but here we are playing establishment games.
Very interesting. All right, Andre, thank you for your call, sir. Let's continue. Rick, Atlanta, Georgia, the great WYAY. Quickly, go.
Mark, thank you. What I wanted to say was that I don't think that he's compromising his principles by changing his position. And I'd preface that by saying that euphoria is that feeling that we get before we sometimes fully understand the situation.
All right. Well, help us understand it before we get to euphoria. Which principles are you talking about?
I'm talking about if he's the previous caller was saying that he felt like he ran on one thing and he's changing his positions. I think there's a good case for why that's a good thing. You have market intelligence. If nothing changes in the market, militarily, politically, economically.
No, but you don't change your principles, do you? In your own life.
Huh?
You don't change your own principles in your own life, do you?
I won't change my principles, but I will react.
Okay, so you started off, and I said, what principles does Trump have that you're talking about? What are you talking about?
Principle number one to me is that America first. And
come on, pal. America first. I believe in America first. That doesn't mean we agree on everything. What principles are you talking about?
Small government.
Okay, well, infrastructure doesn't get a small government. Anyway, I got to run. I apologize. I'll be right back.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. What I'm demonstrating in part here, ladies and gentlemen, is there are some people who voted for Donald Trump because they like Donald Trump. And nothing is going to cause them in any respect to even raise questions. And so they begin to rationalize everything that's been done. Well, of course he's doing this to make America great again. Well, wait a minute. I thought getting rid of the Export-Import Bank and things was making America great again. No. Now he's really making America great again. America first. Well, now, wait a minute. I thought these positions he held during the campaign was America first. No, you don't understand. Now they're really America first. Because after this, then he's going to get the best deal that he can. And what are the principles? Don't worry about principles. He's negotiating. He believes in what's best for America. And so I believe this is about a third of his support base, and even somewhat smaller percentage of the population generally. Maybe it's somewhat bigger. And I also believe that if he thinks he needs to change his position, given the circumstances, then he should. As long as it's based on some principle. Getting a deal to get a deal, ladies and gentlemen, is not acceptable. It's not acceptable. If getting a deal to get a deal further bloats the budget, doesn't secure the border, doesn't protect America, then it's a rotten deal. Obama got a deal. He would do anything he could to get a deal with the Iranians. Now, I understand that's not Trump, please, but that's not my point. Getting a deal is a process. It's not substantive. So it's not enough to get a deal. You have to have a deal. You have to have, something substantive. And I don't want to keep hearing that he's a businessman. Some businessmen are great. Some businessmen suck. Some business organizations are great. Some suck, like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Some businessmen as president suck too. Herbert Hoover's a prime example. I don't want to hear these are platitudes. They have nothing substantive behind them. Well, he's a businessman. Oh, okay, forget it. I didn't mean anything. You can do that on other shows. You can do that with other hosts, with the Pom-Pom Boys and the Rockettes and all the rest. It doesn't work here. You gotta go beyond the superficial and the nonsense. This isn't a rally. This is a discussion. Well, look, he's a successful businessman. I know that. Now, I want him to be a successful president. I want him to advance a conservative agenda as much as he possibly can. That's what the Freedom Caucus is doing in the House. They saved the president from a disastrous bill pushed by Paul Ryan and the Rhinos. I'm no fan of his chief of staff. I've said it 1,000 times, Reince Priebus. He brings a rhino right into the body of the place. I'm no fan of all these liberal Democrats he's brought into the White House who are trying to move him to the center. But that's okay, right? Well, there's a article here by Rich Lowry in Politico. Rich Lowry is the head muckety-muck over at National Review. Rich Lowry and National Review came under a withering attack by Trump supporters because they strongly came out against Trump, by the Breitbart website, by the president and his people and so forth. But I want you to listen to Lowry, what he says here. Can someone reacquaint Donald Trump with Stephen Bannon, his ideologist whom the president now professes to barely know? Trump's jaw-dropping public distancing from Bannon in the New York Post the other day is the latest twist in a struggle that is astonishing even by the standards of a White House that deserves its own Chris Buckley novel. I would say John Heybush novel. For Bannon, the internal fight with the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is going about as well as could be expected, which is to say it couldn't be going much worse. No one can know for sure how this ends. Perhaps it's all papered over, or maybe Bannon keeps his head down to fight another day. But it's hard to see how Kushner doesn't prevail in one form or another, together with the faction including his wife Ivanka Trump, the influential economic advisor and former Goldman Sachs president, big mouth, liberal Democrat Gary Cohn, and Deputy National Security Advisor Dina Powell, who I understand from the Bush people is a really rotten egg. Who says bipartisanship is dead? With the exception of Powell, writes Lowry, a non-ideological Republican. This group is all Democrats, and not lunch bucket Democrats either, but ladies who lunch Democrats who have marinated for decades in the financial and social elite of Manhattan. This ascendancy would potentially represent Trumpism's thermidor. If Jared and Ivanka end up running the joint, it'd be hard to overstate the turnabout from last year's campaign. Although, if you listen to some callers to this program, they could care less. Right, Mr. Producer? Oh, it's fine. Make America great again. A candidacy whose supporters reviled so-called rhinos may produce a White House run by people who aren't even rhinos. A populist revolt that disdained people who allegedly spend too much time at Georgetown cocktail parties may result in a White House run by people who have spent too much time in New York cocktail parties and Fashion Week events and art shows and Metropolitan Museum of Art galas and celebrity birthday parties. The biggest middle finger in mainstream media has ever received in American politics may empower people who care deeply about what's written about them in the New Yorker and Vogue. As for Gary Cohn, he would have been the totem of everything Trump was running against in 2016, when he made Goldman Sachs into a kind of swear word. To put it in Jacksonian terms, it would be like Andrew Jackson inveighing against the Second Bank of the United States, and then handing his domestic policy portfolio over to its president, Nicholas Biddle. So how did we get to this point? Bannon is saddled with the failed launch of the first travel ban, a gruff personal style that doesn't necessarily wear well in the corridors of power, and failure or not, the rocky first several months that have been Trump's numbers have seen his numbers sink while the Republican Congress spins its wheels. Bannon may talk to reporters, what White House officials don't, but he hasn't sought out self-glorifying media when presumably gobs of it were on offer. He's nonetheless been hurt by the narrative, driven by the press, and used against him by internal enemies, that he is Trump's Bengali. It surely wasn't his idea for a big profile in Time magazine with the cover line The Great Manipulator, or for Saturday Night Live to spoof him as the true power in the Oval Office. None of this is endearing to Trump. He doesn't like attention hounds besides himself and wants victories and popularity. As for Jared and Ivanka, they must worry that the family patriarch is being ill-served in ways that may hobble his presidency and damage their brand. So a shakeup looms. There's much in Bannon's politics I don't like, writes Lowry. The hostility to traditional conservatism, the protectionism, the reflex toward needless confrontation. I agree with all that. But he has a considered worldview and helps anchor Trump somewhere in the populist conservative polity continuum. If he goes, it could be a sign that everything's up for grabs. A President Trump could begin to react to political pressures from the world of Jared and Ivanka that so far haven't affected him. Trump's views on immigration, climate change, abortion, and policing are socially embarrassing, sometimes even in Republican elite circles, let alone in the liberal ones. All of them would potentially be subject to softening or reversal in a White House that cares too much about polite opinion. And some of my callers, you heard them, some of the folks listening. If he lurches left, perfectly fine. Get the best deal you can. Lurch left, okay, fine. With illegal border crossings down, perhaps a grand bargain on immigration becomes alluring next year. Maybe pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords isn't worth the bad optics. Who wants to expend political capital defending Planned Parenthood and so on? The weakness of Trumpism in Washington is that it doesn't have a congressional wing, and it represents only a faction within the White House, and apparently not even the dominant one. Perhaps a shakeup will only mean a more normal, quote-unquote, White House that is better run, although Trump himself is responsible for much of the chaos. Perhaps Trump's genuine, if inchoate, populism and Vice President Mike Pence's conservatism will be enough for the administration's basic orientation to survive any constellation of White House aides. Certainly there are all sorts of ways to try to moderate Trump's image while still staying true to a tempered version of his populism, but a sensible recalibration would seem out of character. And it's not the next chapter in a Buckley would write in his fiction books. What do you think of that? What do you think of that one? Now, Rich Lowry has every reason to have nothing but contempt for Steve Bannon, but he doesn't. And he's saying, look, there's a number of things I don't agree with him on, but At least he does hold on to some conservative values and positions in the populist realm. These liberal Democrats, they're not even acquainted with conservatism, let alone nationalism, populism. They're acquainted with liberalism of the Manhattan type. So what about that? Is that okay? I'm just curious. Is that okay? Mark, don't worry about this stuff. The president will do the right thing. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Just stop analyzing. Stop discussing. Stop at the this and that. And by the way, there's this notion out there that the liberal media are doing this. The liberal media aren't doing this. The President of the United States had an interview a couple of days ago on the Fox Business Channel, and he gave Bannon the dust-off, the blow-off. That's what he did. Now, I don't really think that's a great idea. The guy's been loyal to Trump. He turned on Cruz in the middle of the Republican primaries. He and his website went all in for Trump in every respect. Anybody who even had a question about the Trump candidacy was brutalized and attacked and questioned or whatever. They were all in. The billionaires that helped subsidize the Breitbart site and have helped subsidize Bannon and helped subsidize the Trump campaign, the Mercers, they were all in. They quickly dropped Ted Cruz. They were all in. All of them were all in for Trump when Trump needed it. This guy, Gary Kahn, a good name for him, not Gary, the Kahn part. There he is, a big muckety-muck at Goldman Sachs on Wall Street. And, of course, very, very wealthy man and a huge liberal Democrat. And a big mouth on top of everything else, I'm told. Big mouth. This lady, Dina Powell, the Bush people have been telling me more and more about this lady. She's a climber and very vicious. Now, these people are welcome to come on the show and talk to me. I'm more than happy, but I'm not seeking them out because I know they won't. But I'm just saying. So to blame the media, the media's doing all this. The President of the United States, 2 days ago, it was 2 days ago, right, Rich? He was on TV and he made these statements. Now, and by the way, as a side note, this clown, Joe Scarborough, again, straight out of the movie Deliverance. Just take a good look at that guy. When he was a little kid, don't you think he was the actor sitting on the bridge playing the banjo, the little boy? He looks like it to me. I think Joe had a past career. Not as a failed congressman or failed radio host, as he is now a failed TV host, but as a actor in Deliverance. But this guy is basically he's a puppet. So people call him, leak to him, and he repeats what they say. He's a clown. And dumb as a doorknob, by the way. Just dumb as they come. So those four of you who watch him, you need to understand. And he plays to the Manhattan crowd, to the same crowd. You have to keep that in mind. Now, you know the last time I spoke to Steve Bannon? I don't know the last time I spoke to Steve Bannon. It's been a very long time. So anything I'm telling you has nothing to do with him, and it doesn't come from him. Period. I'm just an observer. And I'll tell you what bothers me the most. What bothers me the most as I look at this very tight-knit inner circle with family, business friends, Bannon, Reince Priebus. What have I said the last several weeks? What's missing? We're the conservatives. Is there a constitutional conservative, a Reaganite, anywhere in the top senior tier of policy advisors to this president? There's not one. I can count all the liberal Democrats. The nationalist populists, the rhino, got them all. Not one constitutional conservative. Not one. None in the inner circle. There's got to be one in the family. Isn't there some kid in the family who can step up? I don't know. Apparently not. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
In the end, President Trump will be judged by the voters on whether he is successful in many respects or not. It won't be based on who his staff is, quite frankly. Nobody cares outside of people who really focus on these sorts of things. Go down the street and ask them if they care. Ask your neighbors, ask your family. Most of them don't care. Now, that said, I think it's a raw deal when Bannon is blamed for the failure of this repeal on Obamacare. That's on Paul Ryan, and Reince Priebus. Bannon wasn't the strategist behind that. And I find it interesting that Bannon's attacked for that and the Freedom Caucus is attacked for that. The Freedom Caucus didn't do that, and Bannon didn't do it either. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I call him as I see him. That's the way I see it. And then he's attacked for the executive order, the first one and the second one. Well, what you have out-of-control judges. Out-of-control judges who have as their purpose to stop the President of the United States. And they didn't cite anything Bannon said. They cited what the President said during the course of the campaign. It didn't even matter how these executive orders were drawn up. These judges were not going to allow it, period. And they used what Trump said during the course of the campaign, not anybody else. And it was bogus what these judges did. But how is that on Bannon's head? It's not. Now, if success is growing the government with massive infrastructure spending, that in part is on Bannon's head. If success is a new family leave subsidy, if success is reversing course on core issues, then I don't see how that's successful. Just saying. Just saying. In the end, the president will be judged on his record. Not on a cabinet member, not on a staffer, not even on his vice president or his family or anything of the sort. He will be judged on his record. And by the way, I want the president to succeed. I want him to be incredibly successful. I'll be right back. Incredible ingredients make incredible meals. But not all ingredients are created equal. That's why Blue Apron partners with a community of over 150 artisanal suppliers, family-run farms, sustainable fisheries, and responsible ranchers across the United States. Thanks to these partnerships, Blue Apron is able to deliver fresh, seasonal, perfectly portioned ingredients with easy-to-follow recipes right to your door for under $10 per person per meal. Log in each week to select the recipes you want to cook or let Blue Apron choose based on your food preferences. Now, with Blue Apron, there's no weekly commitment, so you only get deliveries when you want them. Rediscover how fun cooking can be while enjoying specially, prepared, specifically special ingredients and exploring new flavors. It's absolutely wonderful. And you can get new cuisines, too. When you cook with Blue Apron, you bring the best ingredients to your table while developing a sustainable food system for future generations. Join the growing community of Blue Apron home chefs today and get your first 3 Blue Apron meals free. Free, plus free shipping. At blueapron.com/Levin. That's blueapron.com/LEVIN. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. This is a wonderful sponsor, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolutely wonderful sponsor. I'm so thrilled they're with us, Blue Apron. You can get really healthy, delicious cuisines, ingredients, and it's by the numbers. And they get the freshest ingredients available. And they have these various facilities all over the country, strategically positioned to make sure that happens. And I spoke to these folks, and they really, really want to provide you with the possible ingredients for the best possible meals they can. It's Blue Apron. BlueApron.com/Levin. BlueApron.com/LEVIN. They have a whole group of people who work to track down the best ingredients, to bring you the healthiest, freshest food possible. BlueApron.com/LEVIN. Levin. By the way, I'm no nationalist populist or Republican in name only or this, that, or the other. This is the home of the constitutional conservative right here, of our founding principles. This is where it is, right here. This is the breaking story I wanted to tell you about. Now, of course, the media will take it one way and we'll take it another way. This is CNN. So the leaks to CNN are intended to hurt Trump. This we know. British and other European intelligence agencies intercepted communications between associates of Donald Trump and Russian officials and other Russian individuals during the campaign and passed on those communications to their U.S. counterparts, U.S. congressional and law enforcement, and U.S. European intelligence sources, tell CNN. So we have Democrats on Capitol Hill on the Intelligence Committees now leaking to CNN. And law enforcement officials would be individuals at the Justice Department, holdovers, who are leaking to CNN. So Obama holdovers and Democrats on Capitol Hill. Let me make it as clear as I know how. The communications were... This is why Devin Nunes wasn't so quick to bring everything to the Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee. And I noticed that weirdo, Mark Warner, the senator from Virginia, he's all over the place with his little tics and Tourette's and all the rest that's going on with that face. But anyway, let's go on. The communications were captured during routine surveillance of Russian officials and other Russians known to Western intelligence, British and European intelligence agencies, including GCHQ, the British intelligence agency responsible for communication surveillance, were not proactively targeting members of the Trump team, but rather picked up these communications during what's known as incidental collection, these sources tell CNN. Whole lot of incidental collection going on out there, huh, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's international. Just happens. The European intelligence agencies detected multiple communications over several months between the Trump associates and Russian individuals and passed on that intelligence to the United States. What did they do in 1983 and 84 when Ted Kennedy and John Tunney were busy communicating with the Soviet Union for the purpose of defeating Ronald Reagan? I mean, there you had actual attempts to change the results of an election. The U.S. and Britain are part of the so-called Five Eyes Agreement, along with Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, which calls for open sharing among member nations of a broad range of intelligence. The communications are likely to be scrutinized as part of the Senate Intelligence Committee's investigation into Russia's efforts to meddle in the 2016 presidential election. How do they know that at CNN? Because the Democrats are leaking. The Democrats are... CNN knows exactly what it's doing. It knows exactly who its taskmasters are. It knows exactly who they're a mouthpiece for. They know exactly what they're doing, CNN. If foreign intelligence agencies share information with U.S. intelligence and it's relevant to the investigation, then of course the Intelligence Committee will look into it, a source close to the Senate investigation told CNN. So now we have the Senate Democrats leaking to CNN. GCHQ surveillance, that's British, became politically sensitive when Trump, citing an uncorroborated Fox News report, claimed claimed that Britain had whatever, that's the Napolitano stuff. Nothing to really do with the story. Let's see. Okay. So, now, if you're a lib or a reporter, well, actually, that is a pre-existing condition to be a reporter. So if you're a lib reporter, your view is going to be, wow, look at this. They were picking up all these communications. And if you're me, you go, wow, look at the extent of the surveillance on the Trump people. It went international. It went international. Of course, it's all incidental collection, except, of course, for that FISA court, where they got a warrant on probable cause that Carter Page is a foreign agent. Be interesting to see how that one turns out. And, of course, the FBI is still conducting its counterintelligence investigation. We'll see how that one turns out. But the big story is this was international. British and other European intelligence agencies intercepting communications. Now, the fact that there's communications between, quote, associates of Donald Trump and Russian officials and other Russian individuals, whatever that means, I don't even know what that means, is a big so what? So what? I can remember when Nancy Pelosi went and visited Assad. You remember that, Mr. Producer, in Syria? Oh, yeah. She went out there, she visited Assad, a mass murderer, genocidal maniac. Nobody brings that up anymore. I remember that. I remember when the Democrats were all over Central and South America, meeting with one communist, third world genocidal maniac after another and undermining the Reagan administration. Yeah, I remember that. Wonder if our intelligence agencies picked that up, or the Brits, or the Europeans, the others. What else have the British and the Europeans? Now, of course, the British are Europeans, but I'll just play CNN's game. What else are the British and the Europeans picking up? Anything with respect to the Democrats, the Clintons? Huh? Anything? Any incidental collections here? No. No, of course not. But it's getting more and more interesting as we put the pieces of the puzzle together. So we have these foreign entities picking up these contacts, incidentally, obviously, giving it to the United States. With the FBI, once or twice, going to the FISA court and certainly getting a warrant on Mr. Carter Page, man I know nothing about, quite frankly, and perhaps others. And we know that virtually all the intelligence departments and agencies and the top law enforcement, FBI, were involved in a council, a committee of meetings they would have from time to time, sharing the information. So serious was this. We also know the White House knew about it, because we have the New York Times reporting that intelligence information went to the White House officials, plural, went to White House officials, and they were so concerned about what they found, they were spreading it all over the federal agencies, the intelligence agencies. And, of course, some of it wound up in the newspaper, just like some of it today did with CNN. And the Democrats have been pushing for a special prosecutor, independent committees, Jeff Sessions to step aside and to recuse himself, and this one, and then Nunes to get lost, and everything. Anybody who's in their way, they intend to steamroll. They even tried to steamroll me, but it didn't work. No, it didn't work. British and European intelligence agencies intercepted communications. Did they intercept any communications with any of the Democrats? Any of their staffers with the Russians? I'll bet they did. Any senators or congressmen? I'm just curious. Will that get linked to CNN? No, it won't get leaked to CNN. But here we have Democrat leaks from Capitol Hill and leaks out of the Justice Department. I'm sure Obama holdovers or those who are sympathetic to CNN. And they know to go to CNN because CNN is so corrupt and intellectually dishonest. It's amazing, even more than MSNBC. At least MSNBC, it admits, look, we're full of circus clowns here. Okay, we got that. But CNN pretends to be a news operation, when in fact it's not. It's the equivalent of Russia TV, except it's big government TV for Democrats. Democrat TV. DT. I wonder what Joe Scarborough thinks about all this. Actually, it's going to be very, very confusing for him. His massive head would explode. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
All right. I'm going to tell you about Blindster.com. Blindster.com. It's the only window treatment company I endorse. That's BlindsTER.com, by the way. I love their exclusive fit or free guarantee. And their owner, Kyle Cox, is so certain that you can measure and install your own custom blinds that if for any reason they don't fit, even if you messed up, Blindster will replace them for free. You only pay shipping. Kyle's one of the great American entrepreneurs who keeps this country running. He stands by his products because he stands by you. How do I know? Because I know him. I know him. I know all of our sponsors. He is terrific. Now, you, my beloved audience, you get 35% off. 35% off when you enter promo code MARK at checkout. To top it off, Blindster's selection of custom-made blinds, shutters, and shades is amazing, and their prices are the lowest in the industry. So if you can use a tape measure and a screwdriver, you can install the highest quality custom shades, shutters, and blinds. So visit my friends at blindster.com. That's blindster.com. Don't forget promo code MARK so you can get 35% off at checkout. That's a big discount. Blindster.com, blindster.com, promo code MARK. You'll love it. Next hour, we're going to talk about a coalition of very odd organizations that is now trying to pull together an effort to block the Convention of States. It includes the John Birch Society. It includes Eagle Forum, among others. It also includes AFSCME, Common Cause, Democracy 21. See, we're starting to get the attention of our enemies, ladies and gentlemen, because 10 states have now adopted the resolution. 10 states. We need 34 states. And we will address this because the Huffington Compost is all worked up about it. Fred Wertheimer, the jerk who's been hanging around for decades, Washington, D.C. Oh, I work for this nonprofit and that one and this one and that one. President of Democracy 21. Whatever that stands for. And he's written a propaganda piece. And, of course, as soon as they call it a constitutional convention, you know they're frauds. Now, we know the left wants to leave things as they are because the left wins. The federal government represents their ideology. But when you have these outlier groups like the John Birch Society, and Eagle Forum, unfortunately, has become an outlier group and a kind of a knucklehead organization at this point. I'm sorry, it just is. And you got another group running out there and insist, only the balanced budget amendment, only the balanced budget amendment. Absolutely stupid. I'm sorry, I got to call them out because they're causing us grave damage as they try and build a momentum toward this. Many cases, we've been under the radar for a while. And the headline in this piece that I'll read to you in the next hour is The Battle to Preserve the Constitution. So the very forces that have undermined the Constitution, particularly on the left, the very forces that laugh at the Constitution, the very forces that call our founders and framers slave owners and leave it at that, the very forces you saw represented on the Senate Judiciary Committee, where one Democrat after another trashed our history and trashed our founding and trashed our heritage and trashed our Constitution. Now the groups that are in alliance with them, they claim to be battling to preserve the Constitution. They have no intention of preserving the Constitution. They don't even believe in the Constitution. They believe in a centralized, iron-fisted government with a massive bureaucracy to endlessly torment us. That's what they believe in. Listen to this first paragraph. The battle over efforts to call a constitutional convention is currently taking place throughout the country. Occurring below the national radar screen, the fight has enormous consequence. Below the national radar screen, every left-wing kook media outlet, from PBS to CNN to MSLSD to all the big networks and all, they pick up stuff I say on this show. I've written an entire book on it. It's sold hundreds of thousands of copies. They're out there. It's out there in hardback, paperback, audio. We talk about it on this program all the time. There's an organization headed by Meckler and Farris, a big organization with hundreds of thousands of volunteers. Under the radar? Well, maybe we were under their radar. But let me tell you, Left Wing and John Birch Society and Eagle Forum, we're going to fight you right to the end. We are sick and tired of what's going on and you frauds and you phonies, if you're in the way, then we intend to plow you by too, with your phony arguments and your scare tactics. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a bruising battle, a very, very bruising battle. Proponents are attempting to pass resolutions in 34 state legislatures that call for a constitutional convention to adopt a federal balanced budget amendment. Well, we intend to do more than that. That's not one group that has spent 30 or 40 years raising funds on a balanced budget amendment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're far beyond that. A balanced budget amendment? Great. Let's say we balance the budget today. What are we going to do with the $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities? What are we going to do about separation of powers? What are we going to do about a massive, out-of-control administrative state? What are we going to do about a judicial oligarchy? These knuckleheads who just pushed the balanced budget amendment, they have no answers. They're stuck. Most experts agree, however, that once a constitutional convention is called, the actions of the convention could not be limited in advance. Of course they can. Of course they can. So now the scare tactics. The same clowns with Obamacare, the same clowns, no more scared. Oh, we couldn't limit it in any way possible. Of course you could limit it. It takes 38 states to ratify an amendment. 38 state legislatures or state conventions. That's pretty damn limited. More when I return.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well, I wasn't going to get into this today, but I didn't even know it existed till it was sent to me. Let me read you this piece in the Huffington Compost by Fred Wertheimer, contributor, President, Democracy 21. But look how the left tries to position itself with the abuse of language. The battle to preserve the Constitution. Is there really anybody on the left who wants to preserve what's left of the Constitution? You know any left-wing judges who want to preserve the Constitution? A battle over efforts to call a constitutional convention. It's not a constitutional convention. The Constitution itself calls it Convention of States. And let me just say as an aside, states used to meet all the time. They're called meetings. Meetings. States would send delegates to have meetings where they could discuss things of concern, things they needed to resolve, and things that are of shared interests. That's essentially what it is. And in this case, the